I just want to welcome two of the ex-Debenhams workers who are going to talk to us today about the lessons from the strike, their experiences, and also why they took part with myself in the writing of a declaration, a Debenhams Workers' Declaration, as it's called. So the two workers are Caroline Bridgman, who was one of the strikers from Mahon Point in Cork, and Samantha Hanna, who's one of the Blanchardstown workers. So thanks to both of you for agreeing to talk today. So we just start with how you first heard that you'd lost your jobs. So how did you get the news? Caroline, how did you find out about
it? Well, it was on Thursday, April the 9th, and I was on my way to shopping, and there had been a WhatsApp group set up on March the 23rd when the store closed due to COVID. So through that app, there was an email and look at your emails, girls. So when I checked out the email, there was a letter from our HR law reporter stating that the company was no longer viable. It was going, they had applied for liquidation of the company, and all 11 stores were being closed. So for me, it was a complete shock because we knew that a lot of the stores were still viable. We knew some of the stores were still making huge profits for the company, and it was just, after being involved in national negotiations for many, many years, we never thought that it would come to this, that they would just up sticks, close all 11 stores and pull out of Ireland just in the blink of an eye. So after reading the email, like I said, it was just complete shock. And after that, then it was just contact with people that wouldn't be reading their emails and making sure that they were all right, and just answering questions that people had. And it was Easter Thursday, so it was coming up on a bank holiday weekend, and it was just complete shock and horror that we all, almost 1,000 workers, had lost their jobs just with one email from the company. So yeah, it was very, very shocking, and it was very much unexpected and out of the blue that we got it. I'm very disrespectful that they sent out a generic email to each and every one of us instead of even organising a meeting or organising anything to let us know what the circumstances were. I mean, they had given so many, they had given us reassurances over the weeks beforehand, because the UK company was going into administration in order to save stuff like that. So we were given assurances that the Irish leg of the company wasn't going to be affected. So to get that was just, it was just like a massive slap in the face to all of us as workers, and it was devastating, absolutely devastating on the day.
Samantha, how long were you working in Debenhams, and how did you hear?
I actually worked in Debenhams 24 years, but I only worked for the company for 21 years. I worked for an outside agency first, and when the supermarket stopped getting all their deliveries in, Susan Kennedy was their HR at the time, and she said to me, "You can have whatever hours you want, we'll give you a job here." So I was in there in a hard hat before the shop even opened. So I was there from the day one. So I had a phone call actually from Sinead, who I worked with. She'd done my shift with me, to see had I read the email, and I said, "No, what email?" Because she knew I was with my dad. My dad was very sick at the time, and she says, "Oh my God, we're after losing our jobs." And I thought she was pulling me leg, like I said, "Yeah, right, you know, she's no, seriously." And I could hear it then in her voice that, you know, "Oh no, we're in trouble here." And I was just, it was like my whole world was after ripping apart, because I was there for so long. Like I said, I was looking after my dad, so I was kind of going, what am I going to do? Like, my head was just mush. I read the email and I just couldn't believe what they were after doing, because I was always saying to the girls in work, no, if Debenhams ever goes in Ireland, Blanchardstown, Henry Street, and one of the shops in Cork will be safe. We'll be the tree, that's fine. We're staying here forever. But like, that wasn't the case. Like, they just pulled the wool from under our eyes and whipped out the whole 11 stores. Like, so I was just in total shock. I still can't believe it now, to be honest.
There's a few things there. That one of the things that came up when I was talking to a lot of the workers during the over a year of the strike was that a whole number of the stores were profitable.
Yeah.
And I think Blanchardstown and Mahon Point were actually two of them. So it's an awful pity that no attempt was made to try to, by our government, to try to work with the fact that a whole number had been profitable and to use that to keep the shops open in general. Were you disappointed about that?
Oh, absolutely, because like, as I said, I would, like, for the years like that, we're always threatening this, that and the other, and doing our pay cuts and whatever. I kept saying, no, we're still safe. We're definitely going to be the ones that will stay open. Whatever about hitting the other stores that aren't making as much money as we were, I said, no, we're definitely going to have our job. So I was really shocked. You could have floored me now, really.
I know a lot of the workers had to deal with bereavements and all sorts of personal stuff happening to them after losing their jobs as well. Samantha, you were one of those, but there was others as well.
Yeah, even the day of the email that we got, one of our ladies lost her mother as well. So like, she had a double blow on that particular day, so like, we all have, every week there was a debt between like parents or, some sort of a relation or whatever. It was just horrendous, like, but we were all there for each other on the picket lines, if you know what I mean, to look after each other, where we would have had that in work. Like, we were all so united with each other in work, but we never had as many deaths when we were in work. It might have been one every 6 months or something. It just kind of just kept coming bang, bang, bang at us. But yeah, my dad died in September, like, he'd only been sick a few months, like, and I didn't spend as much time in the beginning doing the protests and the pickets. I was only going out for a couple of hours kind of every day, but I was exhausted between, looking after my dad and going over to the pickets. But when Dad died, I kind of just took a week off, and then I had to kind of go back and do something, because my life was just in a turmoil, more so than I had been. And it kind of gave me that lift and the boost. I was doing overnights as well, because I wasn't sleeping at all. Like, I wasn't going to sleep, say, till 5 or 6 in the morning. So the overnights was kind of helping me, because I was busy as such, whether it be just having a chat, freezing cold, mind you, sitting in the car park, the dark car parks. But, it was something that we felt we had to do. We need to do this for our rights, for everybody's rights, because we were thrown under the bus, definitely, where we'd no help from anywhere. Like, the government, kept pushing us aside. The mandate wasn't helping us, like, only for the socialists, put people before profits. Sinn Féin, we had an independence as well on our picket line, only for all yous. Like, we would have got no publicity, because we had blackout even with the media, and anytime we had an interview with somebody, there was something else more important was after popping up. So we were getting no publicity at all. So we were in the background of everything, and we were just trying to be as loud as we could be on our own as such.
Well, just on that, right? So I would have been contacted by some of the workers, and I know McBarry TD was early on. Caroline, can you explain how it came about, where the workers decided to stage their own protests to bring this to public attention?
Well, I know when the news broke, like I said, it was a Holy Thursday, and we were heading into a long weekend, a bank holiday weekend. But straight after the bank holiday weekend, the workers got angry. They were annoyed, and they felt completely disrespected with the way that we were given a generic email and everything. And we would have had contacts with the national negotiation team, that we would have contacts in each and every one of in the vast majority of the stores. So by getting together, there was a media campaign set up on the Tuesday following the bank holiday weekend, speaking out about the way we were treated, the way the company had sent a generic email and imparted the news, and especially using the bank holiday weekend so that they hoped that after the weekend things would have blown over, there would have been something else in the news on the Tuesday. So, I mean, we were all very angry. We were all very annoyed after the way things had panned out and the way they had orchestrated it. So we did get together over the weekend. We were in contact with each other throughout all the stores, and speaking out on the media was kind of like the first step, and then things escalated quite quickly after that. So there was meetings with Mandate, and again, I mean, it was very, very limited in what they were more or less telling us, right, we're going to get statutory redundancy, that's it. But for us, that wasn't what it was about. It wasn't about just getting the statutory redundancy. It was about getting respect for us as workers. And even knowing that a lot of the stores were still viable and profitable, it was just very disbelieving that we could allow all the stores to just close like that.
And so obviously the pandemic was on. It was a very difficult situation because we were in sort of level 5 territory at the time. Yous weren't getting a chance to meet up and talk to each other as workers like it would normally happen. So you took a decision that yous would protest outside the shops, but you did it in a very safe, socially distant way.
Well, after reaching out on social media and with all the radio stations and stuff like that, getting in contact with politicians like yourself and Mick Barry down here in Cork, we kind of organised with your support that we would do a protest across all 11 stores at the same time, and we would do it safely with COVID obviously being adhered to. And we organised that ourselves, and we done that on the 21st of April across all 11 stores. It was socially distanced. A lot of us had got in contact with the Gardaí so that they knew that it was happening. We did get in contact with Mandate, and they, I mean, I know our own divisional organiser in Cork wished us well, but she wasn't going to be attending or supporting it in any way. So it was very successful in the way that we organised it ourselves. We organised to get all placards made up at our own expense. People drove around in cars when they couldn't be physically on at the protest. So there was more of a car parade with their with homemade banners and slogans and everything. And it was, I think, a great boost for the workers, knowing that we weren't just going to sit back and take it, that there was something that we could do, even though we were in a level 5 restrictions, that there was always something we could do. And I mean, like that, we limited the amount of people that were physically on the protest, but more people were in the cars driving around in support, and just organising media to be there and putting it up on using the social media platform in order to promote it and let people know what exactly was going on. That we were workers that were after being the first of very many throughout COVID to lose our jobs, and for the companies to go into liquidation and use it as a smokescreen to basically pull the plug on our jobs.
And you got a lot of public, support and media attention after that. I know there was the incident in Henry Street where the guards moved workers on as well. And I remember, I do think that actually backfired because, people were saying these workers are making an essential protest, and yet there was, the far right were down at the courts. So there was an attitude by the Gardaí in some of the shops, certainly, if people remember that. But just moving on, so eventually the union did agree you had a ballot and there was an official picket put on the shops. Why was it so important to prevent the stock moving out of the shops? Carol, maybe first.
I mean, early on, when the meetings first started between mandated shop stewards and KPMG, when they were appointed as liquidators, it came to light that the UK arm of the company was claiming ownership of the stock and also the Debenhams.ie. So by getting together all 11 stores and the people that were there, there was very strong people came forward with information with regards to how much stock would be worth in each and every store, how much it would cost to pay us our agreed redundancy, which would have been our union agreed agreements that we had in place since 2016. So the stock that was held in the stores was worth a lot of money at the time. And that was the only leverage that we would have had, because the stores were all closed. We were in level 5 lockdown. We were limited in what we could do. So we knew that the stock in the stores was worth a lot of money, more than what they were saying it was worth. And that was going to be our only leverage throughout the action to make sure that we got something at the end of it. And without letting stock get out of the stores, that was the only leverage that we had. And that was where the money lay. We knew it wasn't in the bank accounts because they had transferred all that once the company announced they were going into liquidation. All the money was transferred over to the UK. So that was the only leverage that we would have had throughout the whole action. And that's why when getting the industrial action and balloting for that was so important, so that we would have the strength at the pickets, or so we thought we would have the strength at the pickets and the backing from our union to support the pickets and to support what action we were doing. And that's why it was very, very important.
And Samantha, similarly in Blanchardstown and in all the shops, I think all the workers instinctively felt we can't let this stock out until we get our agreed redundancy, and this is our main weapon.
Absolutely, yeah. But we had so many exits though as well in Blanchardstown that we were trying to cover, because it's a big shopping centre. So we were trying to do walkarounds to make sure nobody was getting out with anything, because they were being sneaky and they were putting stuff into cars and all, because we've seen KPMG with a bag and boxes at certain times that he was obviously putting in corridors and coming around the shopping centre and putting it into his car. So, like, you know, they had us in every angle as well. So they were taking out the really expensive stuff, obviously, at that stage, and telling us there was nothing of importance in the shop. You know, so like we seen them, we witnessed them doing it. Like, it was just very sneaky of them. And we had building going on, like there was a new Aldi getting built, so it was great because they had to block off one end exit for the Debenhams, so the builders was kind of keeping an eye for us as well. And it was great because they had it really blocked off, and if anything untoward was happening and we went around, they were saying, oh, such a body's after going in there. So we kind of knew if we had missed something that we were getting told. So we just had one kind of main area to look after, but we were still on guard with all the other exits as well, because, as I said, there's just loads of exits in Blanchardstown, and you just couldn't keep your eye on them all, you know. Yeah.
A lot of some of the shops just had one exit where all the trucks went in, but obviously others then had to contend with 4 or 5 different places. The workers really used a lot of their own ingenuity to make effective pickets, particularly since there wasn't much lead or support from your union. So how did you organise effective pickets? What happened in Cork, Caroline?
I know, like Samantha, down in Mahon Point, we would have had several entrances and exits and loading days. They were all over the place. But our centre management gave a commitment at the very start that Debenhams would only be allowed to use their own loading day. And we therefore then used to park our cars across the gate so that there's no trucks could get in and out. We would keep an eye, we would walk around the shopping centre just to keep an eye on the place. Overnights was particularly hard and difficult because like that the whole centre would be in darkness, and it was a dark, lonely, dreary place to be at night. But yeah, we would park the cars across the gate to make sure that nothing could get in and out, and we would make sure that there was people there at all times. We were lucky that there was other workers within the centre would keep an eye in the early hours of the morning or during the night when they'd be operating 24 hours. So it was, I mean, like that, it was, the workers were, I mean, very, very optimistic that we weren't leaving anything out, in and out. And to create them effective pickets, it meant that we often had to stand in front of trucks and not leave them past us, even though they drove right to us. Just standing firm and just standing there and blocking the entrances did make it effective in our world. But unfortunately, mandate didn't condone what we were doing. They told us that we weren't allowed to do these kind of things, even stopping trucks and asking them their business, what they were going into the loading bays for and stuff like that. Apparently we weren't allowed to do that, but these were things we had to do to make sure that for other entrances and loading bays that they weren't going in removing stock. So we had to stand firm, and we had to stand up and make sure that we were protecting the stock from being removed at all costs.
And can you explain about the red alert system that the workers set up?
Like that very early days, with the help of yourselves, there was a WhatsApp group set up for all the 11 stores, and a lot of workers were on that. When a red alert come up, then it would go up on Facebook, and it would go into the WhatsApp groups, and there would be people then that would be contacting the media and contacting supporters from the Solidarity Party and People Before Profit, and we would have our own group set up so that when a red alert would go in, everybody would descend on the store and make sure that we had strength in numbers there at the pickets to prevent anything from going in and out. And I mean, we did maintain a peaceful protest at all times, even through the red alerts. Just made sure that there was strength in numbers there at all times to make sure that we were standing firm and it was peaceful and there was nothing getting out of the store.
Samantha, the red alert system kind of worked very well in Blanchardstown, I think, as well, didn't it?
It did. It was extremely successful, because a lot of people were local as well, so they were able to just down sticks and run. There was a sit down, one of the first sit downs, I'd say it was, when the K Garda came.
Yeah.
And all the pensioners were sitting on the ground. It was actually we had a new coffee shop after just being built in Debenhams, and it literally was ready to open. So they didn't get any success of opening at all. So they were trying to get their stuff out. KPMG literally got their stuff out the side door, shut the door behind them, so they weren't able to get the stuff back in. So they were there for hours and hours. But the guards did come. They hadn't really got much input on it. Like they kind of hovered around for a while and knew they weren't going to go anywhere, and they just moved.
Yeah.
You know, so we did win, but we did let the guy out with the stuff because it wasn't Debenhams stock. It was coffee shop stuff. So like he had no choice. It was either leave it in a laneway, you know, and you know, it was all brand new items and what have you. So we would have been probably in trouble for that as well.
And I think a lot of workers found themselves in a situation where they were, you know, doing things that they never thought that they would be doing. So you mentioned that incident in Blanchardstown where some of the workers sat down to stop the stock being removed.
Yeah.
And as you said, a number of them were older
60
women.
plus, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I had a bag ready. Like I would have never been, you know, in trouble with the guard ever. And I actually packed a bag and I said, I'm ready. I'm prepared to be locked up for this, because like it was just terrible what was getting done on us. We were just getting shafted in all directions. And as I said, I was prepared to go, you know, and stand my ground.
Mm. So one of the things that you found was the way that the law was so pitted against workers. Caroline, you were at the cutting edge of it there when you were called to court for breaking an injunction that was imposed to stop the workers, you know, peacefully, very peacefully, but effectively picketing and interacting with the trucks and so on. How did you feel about that, or what was your own thoughts?
Again, firstly, it was just the complete lack of respect, the way that we found out about the injunction. It was through social media, and then I received emails, and I was served papers at the door. So it was incredible that it had taken KPMG so long in order to seek an injunction against us. But like that, I think they were getting desperate in order to get the stock out. So we knew what we were doing was effective and what we were doing was right, and it was holding them up. But I mean, to be treating workers that were just basically fighting for our rights as criminals was a massive blow to, I think, all the workers across the country, and even myself. I had never broken the law before. This was my first encounter going to a high court and attending up in the high court. So it was all new, but at the same time, I think I was so invested and felt so righteous in what we were doing, that it was the right thing, not just for ourselves as workers, but I have young kids, and I didn't want them to have to go through what we were going through and be treated the same way that we had been treated. So this was for my kids, my future grandkids, that we would stand, that I would stand, and I would go to the court. And I mean, if all came to all, if I had to be locked up for what we were doing and what I believed was right in what we were doing, so be it. And I think at that stage, a lot of the workers came to the same realization that, I mean, we're not criminals, but for what we were fighting for and for the cause that we were fighting for, which is workers' rights, if we had to be criminalized and sent to prison, so be it. But this was, it was.
And can I ask you, did Mandate represent you in court or give you any advice or help?
Mandate did not represent me in court, and they didn't support me in the court. When I found out on the Wednesday, I got in contact with Mandate, and the last correspondence I had with Mandate was on the Friday, when we had a meeting with a barrister and a solicitor, and they were advising us to not attend court and to sign a cease and desist order. So we didn't have to go to the High Court. Mandate had led us to believe that we were represented in the court, and after speaking with the barrister and the solicitor, they told us in no uncertain terms that they would not be representing us. They were only asked by Mandate to give us advice, and that was it. So from the Friday until the following Tuesday, I had no contact or support from Mandate.
Just on that, because one of the big fears that unions have is that if they break the likes of the Industrial Relations Act, they'll have their money or their assets taken away. And it's, you know, it's a serious concern, obviously. But I mean, you do wonder, what is the point of having a union if they're just going to bow to all of those threats every time? And as it turned out, I mean, you didn't get, you know, they didn't actually pursue the injunction, is my memory of it, because they knew that there would be such huge sympathy in society for the workers if they went to court. So they actually dropped the injunction and went a different route after that.
Yes.
So, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I mean, my own realization at the time was because of man and their lack of support, which was a massive part of the industrial action, was attending the High Court and facing this injunction, was that mandates have become a business like any other business in this country. And their main concern was not to support and protect the workers and workers' rights, but was to protect their assets. Because that's what it boiled down to with this injunction and this High Court action, was protecting assets. And I mean, like that, the court would have been able to proportion the costs to myself, and should Mandate be representing me, obviously they would have had to pay the court costs. So for me, it was a realization that Mandate is not a union per se to protect workers' rights, but have now become a business, and their main concern is to protect their profits and to protect their assets as what they have. And that comes before protecting the workers, and that was shown with the High Court action and myself. And it was a big realization that, I mean, workers' rights are literally at the ground level, and if a union isn't there to protect the workers' rights, who are? And that's us, the Debenhams workers, and any other worker that has to stand up and fight and lobby for better working conditions, better workers' rights, and face the law, face being criminalised, and doing what we can for what we feel is right.
And so the injunction was granted, but funnily enough, KPMG, or the establishment in general, decided not to pursue the injunction really. But then they decided to go a different route, and in Blanchardstown, I think it would have been one of the first areas where they coordinated the stock getting out with the Gardaí being contacted in advance. So Samantha, you were there that night, I think, with a number of us. The workers got a tip off from a truck driver. And that was actually one thing. I think the strike had a big impact on a lot of truck drivers. Didn't want to pass the picket, but got a tip off that they were going to move the stock out. So what happened that night in Blanchardstown? I think it was the first night that the Gardaí came in big numbers to enforce the injunction.
Yeah, again, we didn't know what door they were going to come out. So we were in two separate areas, because they were one of two areas that they could have kind of came out. We had a good number of people, including yourselves, with us. Then trucks started kind of appearing out of nowhere at midnight, and they were coming to the wrong door and they were reversing back. So we knew they were going around, but they actually didn't come out the door that we thought they were going to come out. They came, like, we had an up ramp and a down ramp, and they always used the up ramp, but this particular night they used the down ramp. And it was about 3 big 40 foots, and then one was after going up the ramp as well, but it was a refrigerated truck. But he did take stuff as well in the back of the truck. And we ended up then, we all went around to that area because we knew there was nothing going to happen in the opposite area. There was, when I went around, there was probably 4 or 6 Garda at the time. And then all of a sudden there was a couple of van loads coming, and it started getting a bit scary because I've never seen all that amount of Garda for, like, women, mainly women workers who were not confrontational, who like were peaceful protesters. Like, there was no fight in us at all. Like, we were just protecting our stock from going out because it was going to be our redundancy money. And the guards did kind of, they were up and down to us, talking to us, asking us, you know, were we going to be moving? We said, don't think so. They got us to have a little conversation with each other to see what we were actually going to do. Were we moving away peacefully or what? So we decided, no, this is it. We're sitting down, we're standing our ground. And the trucks were parked up. Now there was a vegetable truck as well that was blocked in at the time. but they were bumper to bumper. They were not letting him go without them trying to get up behind him. But eventually there was a lock for one of the trucks. The brakes, they knew how to turn the brakes off or something. So that happened, and the fruit and veg guy was able to go. So it just meant that the fellas who were passing the pickets was blocked in, and that was it. I think we managed to block them in till about 4:30 in the morning, and the guards then decided, okay, now we're going to have to start moving you all, and picked people up. You know, there was 2 or 3 guard per person, picking them up, moving them alongside. Now, I personally didn't get on the ground because I have back problems, and I knew if they did get a bit rough, I'd be afraid I'd be out of action forever, like with my back. But I was there, I was in their way. You know, I was still a body there. They done their job, and I thought they'd done it as well as they could do under the circumstances. I didn't find them too intimidating as such to me, but there was probably a couple of people on the ground that they did rough up a bit. I don't know. But anybody that I had seen the moving, they kind of, you know, they were asking, you know, where to hold them and what have you, but weren't letting you back to block the truck in, because obviously when they moved you had to stay away.
I think a lot of people would feel, you know, it wasn't that the guards roughed anyone up, but the fact that they were on standby.
Yeah.
You know, particularly in Greater Blanchardstown.
Yeah.
You know, you do often have cause to ring the guards and can't get them.
Yeah.
A lot of people are comparing the fact that the guards haven't been answering 999 calls for domestic violence, but yet they were there to lift women up off the picket lines who were fighting for their pension in a way, you know, for their redundancy.
But, and not just Blanchardstown guards, they came from all different areas. I think there was guards from Finglas and Cabra as well, if I remember. But there was a lot of them, and it was very scary, you know, to see them all, because we're not terrorists. You know, you wouldn't see that amount if there was a terrorist action, or, as you said, domestic violence or whatever going on. You know, they're nowhere to be found at stuff like that. But it was heart-wrenching to look at our people getting lifted up as well. Like, there was a lot of women very, very upset. They, like, you know, they cried buckets because of what was going on, and the fact that we were being removed while we were protecting our livelihoods. You know, the guards shouldn't have been involved, and to me the judges shouldn't have given KPMG that power to do that either. Like, they were in the wrong. It was level 5. This shouldn't have been happening at all.
Because retail was closed at that time. This was one of the other unlucky things for yourselves. The fact that retail was closed, that you were in a pandemic, it was very difficult to have the immediate impact, you know, that you would have wanted, because they could just delay getting the stock out. It's just important that workers who would realise that in the future, the actions you took would have been more effective, you know. Caroline, the Gardaí also then acted in similar fashion in some of the other shops, like Henry Street, Tralee, Limerick. What was your impressions looking at it from Cork?
Well, there was live feeds from all the stores that the Gardaí did attend in Blanchardstown, that being the first one. And that was the first time that we were watching the Gardaí physically manhandle the workers on the picket line. And I know yourself and McBarry had been in attendance that night. And the disrespect of Gardaí picking up court Dáil officials. I mean, McBarry is a TD. For him to be physically lifted by Gardaí and brought over was just very, very disrespectful. And it showed that, I mean, had nobody literally on our side. We didn't have the Gardaí, we didn't have the legal system on our side, the government. The following morning after Blanchardstown, there was very, very little media interest in it. Then not long after that, it was Henry Street's turn, and again Henry Street leading the way, where the Gardaí were just so rough and so against the workers and what they were doing in Henry Street. And that took on a completely different element, where people were manhandled and roughed up, being taken away from the picket line. You would never see the likes of this happening. I mean, the amount of paddy wagons that were in attendance, they cordoned off roads in order to prevent people from getting access by the stores. They kept people across the road behind barriers. The attendance, we had the public order unit up there that night, and it was incredible to see people being manhandled, and it was frightening. I know one of the workers up in Henry Street, Jane, I mean, she had her clothes literally ripped off her back while she was being taken out of that. And to be watching this live and not being able to do anything about it. And these are guards, I mean, guards that were doing this to people. Where do you go from there? Who do you contact after you've seen this? The guards are there to serve and protect the people, but these were the people that were actually doing a criminal wrong to decent workers. And who do you contact? Who is responsible for this? I mean, the legal system gave order in court that this is allowed to physically remove people from the picket. Where do you go after there? What rights do workers have? What rights do ordinary people have? And again, like Samantha said, these were all women, mainly women on the picket lines that were treated this way. Down in Tralee, so Henry Street was next. Then it was Tralee's turn. And again, down in Tralee, the Gardaí took a different approach, where when they were physically lifting people up off the ground from a sitting protest, they were apologising to people. But again, apologies are one thing. Everyone has a choice in what they do in their work. And Gardaí are no different. If Gardaí did not believe in what they were doing were right, they should have stood away. And I believe some of the Gardaí did stay away from the picket line so they wouldn't have to physically remove people. But it was a choice that they made ultimately. And then in Limerick was just the epitome of, that was the pinnacle of what we were trying to achieve, when they had made several efforts during the week to remove stock, and the workers got there. They had a very effective red alert system that they were after reaching out to a lot of locals and a lot of people of Limerick City, that should a red alert go out, that they would be in attendance. So they had a good red alert system there. And when the red alert was put out, the strength in numbers was visible. But on the last night in Limerick, again, I mean, it was a sitting peaceful protest, and the Gardaí and the public order unit, now bearing in mind there is no public order unit in Limerick, so these were drafted in from other counties, and it was the public order unit that started physically removing the people from the picket and brought them to a separate area. But then the Limerick workers decided, yeah, this, just because we've been moved doesn't mean that we have to stop. So they actually lay down in the middle of a road, and there was people in pajamas, and there was people after getting out of their beds in order to support the Limerick people, and they all lay down on the road, across the road, and there was a massive standoff there. And because of the strength and the tenacity of the Limerick workers, there was no stop removed on that night. The Gardaí, they gave it what they could give, and the Limerick workers, they just triumphed over their efforts, and there was no stop moved or anything. So it was triumphant in the way that when you can organise, and when you had the strength in numbers, and when you had the determination from the workers and the conviction that what they were doing was right, and just they got the results that they wanted, and it was a massive achievement, and it was a great boost for all the workers, knowing that yes, what we are doing, what we can do, can be effective, and we can get good results from it. So we were up against the law, we were up against the legal system, but Limerick showed that we could overcome all that, and they did that night, and it was great.
And one of the things that they did in Limerick was they produced leaflets and flyers, you know, asking people to come down if they were needed, and they got huge support. It's an awful pity in a way that the ballot that was happening around that time just came back then, where I think the workers felt that after a year they probably couldn't pursue this on their own anymore. But I think if Limerick had happened earlier, it might have been different, you know. So that was your experience with the law, but as was shown in Limerick, if you had the numbers, you could have actually forced the company and forced the Gardaí back. What's your overall feeling now about the government, for example, who stayed very quiet throughout this? Samantha, obviously in Dublin West and in Blanchardstown, there's 3 ministers, including the Taoiseach and the Minister for Employment and Trade. Did you ever get any, you know, feedback at all from any of them?
Months and months later, I think about 6 months after I had messaged, what's his name, the Chief Whip. What's his name? I think it was 6 months after I had messaged him, we had all started getting, oh, that's the wrong email address for him. So he wasn't in contact. Now, there was people phoned him, and he did say he was going to, you know, get in touch with them and do this, that, and the other. Nothing ever came about it. None of them ever came to our picket lines to see what we were doing, what we were at. Nothing. Like, we had no support from the 3 of them at all. You know, it's like, and they knocked your door for their votes, but yet they won't support you when you're in your hour of need with them.
And there's been an awful lot of closures in the Blanchardstown centre.
Oh, absolutely. There's been, like, the centre over there is like a ghost town, like just Dorothy Perkins, Borton's, Radar, Top Shop, Top Man, Jack and Jones, Pamela Scott's. Like, there's loads gone. And like, they could have had airbags as well while we were out. But the union told, like, any of them that was in the union was told not to come near the Debenhams workers, you know, which was wrong, because it would have been good to have the numbers out to enforce, to help us help workers, you know, but
yeah,
that's just the way it went.
It's a similar story in Cork, Caroline, isn't it, with the high street, and I'm not sure Mahon Point is probably similarly affected, but there's been a retail jobs massacre.
Yeah, I mean, the city centre, the amount of empty units now in the city centre is just frightening. And I mean, the Debenhams in Patrick Street was a big imposing building, and it was there for years, and there's a lot of history there, and to see it lying idle there, it's actually soul destroying for not just the Debenhams workers, but anyone living in Cork, because this was a big, vibrant store for many, many years. And I mean, people have such great memories of going in there shopping or meeting their partners outside the doors. So it has a huge impact in them in Patrick Street. And I mean, down in Mahon Point was only a new build 15 years ago when Debenhams opened, but it's on the doorstep of Micheál Martin, who is our Taoiseach. And I mean, for him to let these stores that were viable and that were still making profit close down without putting up a fight was just horrendous. And it's baffling, because he could have saved, if the government had stepped in at the start, a lot of jobs could have been saved. A lot of retail jobs would still be there. he did attend the picket in Patrick Street at one time. He like that went in for a photo shoot, a photo opportunity, because the picket lane in Patrick Street was a big element of the fight, the Debenhams workers fight. And he went in there and he said all the right words, that he would look into this and he would look into that and there would be meetings, but nothing ever came. And I mean, like that, he gave us all the teen sympathy, but ultimately, I mean, we got a 3 million training fund at the end of it. We certainly didn't get any payout, and the fund is not going to benefit all of the workers that were affected, that have stood and that have put up a fight for over 14 months, and that put their lives on hold, and that were treated so badly by Debenhams, KPMG, Mandate, the government, the legal system, the Gardaí. And I mean, we were up against everything from the start. And I mean, our government really showed us that they had no respect for the ordinary worker throughout this whole fight. There was a bill, there was bills put to the Dáil, and again the government did nothing with it. I mean, the latest one from Mick Barry has been postponed for 12 months. It's been put on the back burner. It really shows that the government have no respect whatsoever for the ordinary worker. And I mean, more importantly, mainly women workers that are working in retail for the bare minimum. I mean, it's not that we're high earning people that are on thousands and thousands a year. We're ordinary workers just with a basic income, and we were trying to protect that and fight for that. And it was just
on that. I was looking at some figures there, and for example, in the US, women are nearly 5 times more likely to lose their jobs in COVID. And the other problem is a lot of women have ended up having to give up their jobs because of, you know, caring, school, childcare, all sorts of things. So the pandemic is really hitting women workers. Even, you know, obviously every worker is being hit, but particularly jobs that women were in. So I think it's an awful shame that the trade union movement is going to lose a lot of women workers. I mean, how many was there in Mandate in Debenhams?
70, something like that.
Yeah, nearly 900 or something.
1,000. Yeah.
There was two.
And then there was people in the concessions as well.
But there was 2 stores that were not closed shops. So them 2 stores that Mountain Point and Newbridge, they wouldn't be closed stores, so they would have had a mixture of union members and non-union members, whereas all 9 ex-Rocha stores would have been closed shops, so they would have all been union members.
Yeah. And you have Mother Care and Arcadia and all of those other places. The United Nations was talking about women being set back probably to the 1950s in terms of work, you know. Anyway, just on some of the lessons of the strike. So the Debenhams Declaration that you were both involved in, you know, helping to draft. Just wanted to ask you about that and finishing up, why you got involved or why you think it's important. Samantha, do you want to say something on it? What do you think the lessons are of the strike and for other workers?
The lessons are, I think, that we need to stick together. Definitely need to stick together. You're stronger if you're all together. We need to have more backing from somebody that will show that they have a backbone to help you. You know, they can't sit back and let this keep happening over and over again, because it's soul destroying for everybody. You know, it was a job massacre for everybody, and it will keep happening if the workers, the unions, the government, they all have to start playing ball with each other to help the normal people, the ordinary workers, to fight and, you know, just get on with life in general as a whole being as such. You know, like we need to be strong together. Definitely.
And Caroline, what advice would you give workers now? You know, or in terms of getting more organised, should something like this happen to them in the future with their work or their pay and conditions?
I think if it happened and we weren't contending with COVID, it would have been a very, very different outcome, because the workers, we organised ourselves and we realised earlier on that, I mean, a union is only as strong as its members. And we, the members, led this industrial action from the very start. And I mean, we learned an awful lot of skills that we didn't have, and there was a lot of strengths that different people did bring to the table. And getting ourselves organised from the start is what helped us to get this industrial action to where it was. The outcome may not have been what we wanted, but I think for all of us, we can hold our heads up and say, we fought as long and as hard as what we possibly could, and we are proud to have been part of this and to have highlighted what is needed in this country. And it's a complete overhaul of the system, the legislation that's there, because it's not there to protect the workers. And that it is the workers that have the strength in numbers, as what was shown in Limerick, to stand up and fight and get results. And I mean, we're very, very proud of what we have achieved, and we've always had the strength, the determination and the optimism to keep going and keep fighting for as long as we could. And for our industrial action to go on for over 13 months, 14 months, it was incredible. And it just goes to show what can be achieved by ordinary workers, for ordinary workers, and getting the right people to support us, like yourselves. And I mean, without that support, we wouldn't have learned the new skills that we did get. I mean, we now have people contacting the Taoiseach directly, liaising with Gardaí, sending emails constantly to TDs and ministers that we would never have dreamed of doing before, and talking to media, writing speeches and doing that public rallies. And we have learned an awful lot. And if we could give that, all those new skills that we've learned, if we can pass that on to new workers and make sure that we can support them when they need us, would be very, very worthwhile. And it would be great to give that optimism to workers in our situation, that would possibly be in our situation.
Well, listen, thanks a million, both of you, for talking. And I hope that other workers do learn some of the lessons from the strike that you've conducted yourselves, you know, without your union leadership in reality for over a year in the most difficult circumstances. And I just want to salute you both and all of the workers. And it was very, very inspiring working with witches as well, because the fact that you did what you did and got as far as you did when you were up against all of those barriers that you mentioned, the law, the media, the government in action, the Gardaí, and so on, is a true testament. So the Debenhams Declaration, as we've been calling it, is available at www.debenhamsdeclaration.org, and you can read testimonials on that as well that the workers have sent or added on, and you know, little snippets that they've drawn out, their summary of what they've learned. So we'd strongly encourage workers to do that, and if people would like to get copies, there are going to be hard copies available, which you could read, bring into your workmates maybe. And I think one of the key lessons is that workers need to start making efforts now to organise themselves if something like this happens very suddenly, you know, where you bring workers together, they have a kind of a trade union or a worker consciousness. And also start making links with other workplaces, because that was one of the big lacking things in the Debenhams dispute. I mean, there's 40,000 members of Mandate in the warehouse and retail sector and distribution sector. And yet none of that power was ever brought to bear to support the Debenhams workers. And not just for the sake of supporting the Debenhams workers as a principle and as a solidarity, but loads of other workers in the same union have faced the same fate. And so workers are going to have to do this themselves, you know, start making links with other shops, other factories, other wherever you're based. So hopefully as well, we will have workshops and things like that if other workers do get in touch about the declaration, that we can, you know, build on some of the lessons. So thanks a million.